Hello, Rachel.
Hello, Ryan. How are you?
I am doing spectacular. How about yourself?
You know, I'm okay.
You're always okay.
Yeah.
One day you'll be fine. One day you'll be well.
No, I'm not allowed to use the word fine.
Why aren't you allowed to use the word?
I ruined the word fine in our relationship.
I feel like every relationship ruins that word. Whenever someone in a couple says, "I'm fine," it's translation for "I'm not actually fine." And now we're going to have a prolonged argument, but non-argument for at least 40 minutes. But enough about the inner workings of romance, Rachel.
We're looking at the inner workings of the Expanse.
Ooh, do you think there's romance in the Expanse?
Well, they've separated Naomi and Holden again.
Again. Again and again and again.
But
they
he's
can't
gonna go
have them
rescue her.
Oh, I can't wait for that
right?
plot. Can't wait for that plot. Well, there is always romance with everything we do because we are Yum Yum Podcast.
We
and
bring it.
we bring it with us. We're a married couple who are going through episodes of television shows and we review them, we talk about them, we break them down, and yes, we are doing The Expanse. The Expanse, a beloved science fiction series and property in general. There's books, there's comic books, there's video game, there's a video game, just one. I was going to say games, but in general, but just one video game. Didn't it all spawn from like a tabletop game? I never hear anyone talk.
Right.
I never hear anyone talk about that aspect of it. Did that come to fruition? Am I just misremembering? Let us know. I'm sure we'll get a cavalcade of comments letting us know. But why are we so hazy on some of these things? Well, it's because we are first-time watchers. We are consuming The Expanse for the first time. We are exploring what's it all about. This is all brand new information to us, and we have managed to work our way through quite a lot of it. We are now 5 seasons in out of the 6 seasons. We're nearing the end of The Expanse.
I'm kind of not ready for it to be over, to be honest.
Well, we have the books. We could check them out. We could play the game. Perhaps we can live here a little bit longer, but why are we called Yum Yum? Many people are asking that question. We often get...
Any return listeners are not.
No, they are. I get handwritten letters by our returning listeners.
Where are you keeping those, by the way?
In our mailbox, where you never look. Rachel never collects our mail, so she'll never know.
You decided that was your thing to do.
By just doing it. That's how I decided, everyone. She says fine, and I just get the mail.
Well.
That's how our relationship works. Rachel says, I'm fine, and I just say, I'm getting the mail. And that's a night in for the Slawinskys. But, Rachel, we're Yum Yum Podcast because Yum Yum was a line of dialogue from Star Trek Discovery, a series that was so tumultuous in quality that it made us want to podcast. It made us want to sit down with microphones.
Us.
Yes, us, as in you and I. And we have been here for a few years now talking about science fiction shows, Star Trek Discovery, Babylon 5, Space Above and Beyond, and now The Expanse. And what episode of The Expanse have we reached?
We've reached Down and Out. Amos and Clarissa are trapped in a collapsed building. Naomi contends with her old family. Holden assembles a new crew on the Rossi. Alex and Bobby make a dangerous discovery in the belt.
So many plot elements. Did you count them all? There was at least 15 of them that we have to keep a hold of. And they didn't even include Drummer, who gets a scene to be reminded that she exists too. And that there's things that will happen later. But, Rachel, you hate the name of the podcast, but you love an aspect that comes with it, which is when we have to check in on what was Yum Yum in The Expanse.
Yeah. And I have my automatic Amos pick and my non-automatic Amos pick. And my nap for this episode. Can you guess?
No. What is your nap? Your non-automatic Amos pick?
Oh, do you want to share yours first?
No, I'm on the edge of my seat waiting to hear what you could scrounge up from down and out for both your nap and app, your non-automatic aimers pick and your automatic aimers pick. So what have you got?
Okay, this got me excited, and that was when I thought Naomi was going to get herself killed by trying to kill Marco.
That turned you on because that plot and character will end potentially.
Yep.
We were told that we were too harsh about Naomi and how she found herself in this predicament. Just note, Rachel said that just then. I didn't say that. Rachel said that. Bring your commentary to her. I still think it's dumb that she got herself into this. I like what she's gotten into. I think she's just a dumbass that finds herself in annoying plots.
Philip protected her. I liked that. But this is not a very horny episode. This is a very heavy episode. And, you know, I didn't feel like I could have two Amos picks because he was quite fun in this episode. And I didn't think he would let me. So that was what I scrounged.
That's why there's an automatic Amos pick. It's to restrain you from picking only him.
But what was yours? Tell me.
It's a pretty scarce affair when it came to the horny factor, because Yum Yum from Star Trek Discovery was a line that also was not just funny and exuberant, but horny too. And The Expanse promises some sexuality. And has it been more or less since Amazon has taken over? I would say it's been equal amounts of horniness. In fact, we've been given more overt sex scenes in The Expanse's run under Amazon, but we are also just thirstier now. And I don't have a realistic pick.
Zero-G sex.
They set the tone by introducing our main character through zero-G sex with a woman with no nipples. Never forget that they CG'd over her nipples. I'll never
erase
forget
the
that.
nipples. Erase the female presenting nipples.
What was this? A Tumblr-produced show? No female presenting nipples? But this episode has nothing in it. Absolutely nothing.
Are you?
But
not.
I'm gonna have to go off of. I have to go off of vibes.
Okay.
And
what are the crumbs?
Who was enjoying themselves the most in this episode? Who was reveling in what they were up to? And the answer:
Tiny.
No. Oh well. Here's a good pick. My answer is May from Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah. Okay,
she wanted to get hit again. She wanted to bleed.
Yeah.
She was having a great time. Now there's more complexity to her. She wasn't just purely enjoying herself. There was some other emotions bubbling underneath, but the face that she put on for them was one of a little bit more of a hit me harder variety, and that's what I have to claw my way to. Now, Rachel, Amos was prominent in the episode, and he did use his muscles. So what was your automatic Amos pick?
Okay. I've got an action and I've got a line. Am I allowed to split it?
Do what you want.
I make the rules. My line is, I'll take care of Peaches. Because I imagine being Peaches, and that makes...
You're inserting yourself into the narrative now.
I am.
I wouldn't want to be Peaches. She doesn't seem to be doing okay.
No. Not in this situation. And then when he flips Tiny down the elevator shaft.
Makes sense they'd steal it behind these plates. Keep anyone from climbing out.
Tiny, come here. You should stop calling me that. See if you can pull this open.
We've talked about some of the elements of the episode already, wanting to chomp into it. You have some harsh statements about Naomi and her plot. We're talking about Amos. We're talking about Peaches and how things aren't looking good for her. But what do we think about Down and Out as an episode? Even the description, according to IMDb, has a lot of threads in it. So what did you think of the episode?
It was heavy, and I felt the heaviness of the plot, but it did move fairly smoothly. But I also felt like it dragged a little bit. Like I was expecting it to end a couple of segments before it actually did.
I agree. This is probably my least favorite of the season thus far because it's a real move the pieces forward affair. This is setting up the pieces, just getting things into position. Think about how it ends.
We need to do this and this and this and this and this, and they need to all happen around the same time, so we get this episode.
It's bookended by plots that don't really factor into this episode itself, but in the future. We start with Drummer, just letting you know that she exists and she's having a reaction and that Marco is making moves already, and we end the episode with Alex and Bobby getting caught with their trousers down and having to do this wild maneuver to get out of there, and looks like there's going to be more trouble for them in the future. But both of those plot elements aren't really something that you would say this episode is about in any meaningful way.
No,
They
it's just checking in.
And that's how I feel.
Pieces.
That's how I feel. This episode is a little bit of a checklist episode of we have to tick this off and maintain this and water this seed and make sure that this story strand is going where it needs to go. But as an individual episode, it didn't engage me as much as other ones, especially in season 5. It's better than what we've been given in the past, of course, with season 4 or even a season 1 episode, but it's okay.
Avasarala isn't shoehorned in.
No Avasarala. There's no Monica. There's a few characters not here, but it's overall a piece of entertainment that passes the time, but it didn't really bring much out of me. It was just one in which I'm noting down they are making sure that this is going to pay off later. Drummer, for instance, we have it proudly display her faction. We're with the Drummer faction, which we know exists, but it's still a new thing for us, the audience, and we've mainly been spending time with her and her own little crew, and in this one, we're seeing that there's more people under her control, more people in her group. She has a faction. She has such a movement that we now get text on the screen to tell us. So when we cut over to her, you're not just, oh, here's Drummer on a ship. No, here's Drummer and her part of space and her people that follow her and do what she says. And that really weighs into this scene or sequence that she's in because we get a variety of opinions about what had happened previously. She's reeling from the death of Fred Johnson, but all of the other Belters in that room, in that ship, all having a discourse about the happenings on Earth and what this means for the Belt and what this means for the future.
And it is interesting how that contrasts to Naomi's conversation with her old family members throughout the episode as well.
There's this sense of Marco has now branded all Belters as monsters for the Inners because they are going to react negatively to what has gone on, rightfully so. But now we are all going to be seen as the perpetrators because that's how people react. And even in the discussion about this, you have some of the Belters being like, well, Inners are all like this, or Inners will all do this, and they'll all react like this. Or, Fred Johnson, he was good for an Inner. No, he was a good man in general, period, is how Drummer points out. And
yeah, which there's a lot of mirroring of dialogue in this because Drummer's statement directly sort of responds to May's statement about being on like an Earth station run by an Earther.
Although Drummer is mainly here just to be checked in on, I do appreciate the sorrow that she's feeling, but she has to put on her persona to maintain her leadership. She gets the message from
she
Marco.
has to put the hat on.
She has to put the hat on. She has to put the armor on. And she gets a message from Marco that he's sending to all of them to come meet up because the status quo has changed and you must follow my way of doing it now. And she has to. She has to go meet Marco. She has to
Even
do
though
this.
her crew wants to hide.
What did you feel about her anguish about not having killed him when she had the chance and the conversation she has with...
Oh, she's been reckoning with that for a while. It makes a lot of sense. And I feel like her regret is only going to continue to grow.
I like the retort that her lover has about hindsight and how that can be a curse that we trap ourselves with, but we have to be able to move forward and beyond it. And Drama is a character we have seen, especially in this season, grapple with hindsight. Oh, in hindsight, this probably wasn't the way things should have gone, or I could have gone about it in this way or this way, looking back on things, but you can't change it. You have already done it, and now what can you do? You should learn from the past
But Drama
rather than
really
get stuck
is
on it.
punishing herself with that.
And yet also, I appreciate that she can listen, because we saw her in the previous episode listen to that voice within herself and from her lover and not just take up the road of revenge. And we see her having to deal with it now. And is she just going to meet Marco purely just to get the chance to kill him? Perhaps. But also with the way that the conversations are framed in that scene, it also just seems like she's doing it as a wise political move.
Yeah. It's the best move for her to make, because if she doesn't show up, then her voice is going to be neglected or taken or just ignored.
And she could be an outcast within the belts. Somebody who's an enemy that needs to be taken care of, because we learn a lot about how Marco is as a person and how his group operates and what they think of people who aren't pure belters. We get a lot of conversations about that. What do you think about Marco? We're getting more of him in this episode. Spends a lot of time not with just him, but his people talking about what he believes or what they believe he believes.
Yes, we do. And it is very much in line with the world that they have built. That this world would create a monster like Marco.
His crew mentions that he is trying to build something better. And Naomi mentions...
Like Fred was.
Exactly. He's trying to be a builder. He's trying to make something that works. Oh, it's on a river of blood, but it's fine. The Inners have already built it on a river of blood, so if we just perpetuate it,
human history works.
It's just the way it works. You know, we just continue the cycle of violence, and it will work out in the end for us because we're the ones doing it this time.
What I got from that is they're like, well, the Inners are gonna go out, so we need to establish dominance over the solar system, and before they leave, let's make them leave, because they're not going to let us have the worlds through the ring, so we've got to have what's here. I find him very interesting in the way that they are adding depth and texture to him, because we knew that he was coming for a long time, but we didn't know how much of a threat he was. And the way that they're slowly adding grit to him and not just being like, well, he's a terrorist. That's it. Just hate him. There's more to him than that?
He's a fascinating figure because you know what he's about very quickly, but he has a cult of personality around him that he fosters, where other people believe.
Brought that up.
Yeah, Ashford brought that up. And he fosters that. And so you have all of these people speak on behalf of Marco. And yet when we see Marco and when he acts on the things he believes in and when he speaks, it is slightly different to how the people who follow him believe. Like, they have much more of a, like, altruistic look on what he's doing, while when he does his big speeches, it's fervid and it's just so radical and it's just so prepared, and he's enjoying himself. Say with Anderson Dawes. Anderson Dawes, he's played by Jared Harris, so Jared Harris has kind of this, like, mischievous quality, but Anderson Dawes didn't seem like a guy who was reveling in being this person. He had an ego. He had something to prove. He did like his position, but I feel like Marco has much more when he is really letting himself be in charge. He has a lot more fun with what is happening, which is a lot more unsettling.
I think of him giving the speech after he's succeeded in bombarding Earth and Mars.
And he just has this smirk on his face, like he can barely contain the joy. But then you see him interacting with his men, with his crew, and he's got much more of a subdued quality, and you can see why they would believe the things that they believe, because the person they interact with is not so overtly crazy, because that's the thing that you have to ask yourself. And we often ask this: why would people follow or believe in such an overtly evil madman character?
Yeah.
We often butt against this in some
how
shows.
How can people buy into that? And you really see with Marco that he doesn't show his true self a lot, but you do see it wrapped up in there. Like, I think the moment that was really, really telling to me, I think it was in this episode, when he's talking with Philip and he's just like, I'm disappointed because you don't know what you want.
He's doing two things there. He's being the dad and being the leader of the group. He's doing both. The ultimate emotional manipulation.
Yeah. Like,
I'm not angry, I'm disappointed.
Yeah. But the fact that it is, I'm disappointed that you don't know what you want, because he requires certainty.
Do you think that she can be saved? I don't know. That is what disappoints me the most. Look what you did under Hasami. Andrew, that man you sacrificed, you knew him for 11 years. And you loved him.
Yes.
But you knew what you had to achieve, and so you did what you had to do, no matter how hard it was.
The performance is fantastic because
absolutely.
There's three things he's got going on for his kind of villainy. He's got the overt, sinister quality. He has the glare. He has those looks. He's a physically imposing gentleman. Like, you wouldn't want to go against him in a fist fight. So you got that going on. Then you got that more quiet, subdued side, that calculating side where there's like a million things going on in that person's brain. He's not just mustache-twirling evil man, but then you got the whole I'm a dad angle on top of that as well, where he plays certain things like he's a disappointed father or disappointed husband.
Aspect of being a leader.
Do you think Marco believes in what he's doing as the right thing? Or do you think it's just something he is doing because he's almost like an animal? Because they bring that up in this episode. Like how much of this is like he's got these twisted ideals, or how much of it is that he's just a poison to the universe that's just acting out?
I think he's a poison that's found an avenue. Like, he was always corrupted. Thus, he like manipulated Naomi and, killed, what was that, hundreds of people? Thousands?
Millions of people currently, but I think it was hundreds, like 100 or a couple hundred in the previous.
He started out small.
He started out with just a few hundred.
Small.
Yeah. When Naomi had to leave,
he was seeking to exert his control and his vision, because there is very much the idea of I know best for everybody in that sort of godlike way.
He's not afraid to meld things together. That conversation he had with Philip was my favorite scene in the episode. I really loved that because they kind of do this play fighting thing, but then it becomes serious, like where he's kind of choking him a little and getting really handsy and aggressive, but then it becomes this very quiet conversation, but it's this mixture of...
I'm in charge.
I've got my dominance.
Don't doubt that.
But also, I love you, and don't forget that I love you. It's just manipulation upon manipulation upon manipulation.
It's a lot of things at once.
And Philip as a character, what are your feelings towards that character now? Because you've been pretty vocal in previous episodes about not being really on board per se, or just wary of Philip. But this one...
I'm still wary, but I'm more on board than I was in episode 4.
And what about this episode helped that?
I think him having the contrast in the scenes that he has with his two parents worked better for me in this episode.
There's a large narrative around him that he himself doesn't get to participate in. When we see Philip, he's very quiet, rarely speaks. When he does, it's him parroting back what his dad says. Which
is what Naomi feared.
But then there's this narrative about the character that everyone else keeps putting upon him. Oh, he's this sweet, sensitive child, or, oh, I don't know when he changed, or, like, Naomi has this version of him. Marco has this version of him. The other two, that are, like, parental figures to him have a version of this character. But we, the audience, haven't really been given much on Philip himself, like the actual physical person that's standing right there in front of us. Every time we do, he has these doe-eyed looks.
What other people project onto him. And, as a child of a cult leader, that makes sense.
I think he's an interesting mirror and alternative to Diogo, because we saw what happens when a young man gets embroiled in a terrorist organization. We saw a version of that where he was already a shitty kid, but he became like an even worse, even more aggroed out version of that. While with Philip, what I would say is he's malleable. That's what he is. He's just this malleable individual in which everyone is putting something onto him, but what we get out of him is just this blank-faced character. He's done bad things. We've seen him do bad things, so I have an opinion on him, but like when we actually spend time with him in this episode, he's just looking at his mother, looking at his father, looking at these people and just observing. It's like he's a sponge just absorbing stuff in rather than being a fully fledged person himself.
Yeah, which maybe is why Marco weirdly would see his uncertainty as obviously a weakness, but his control slipping. Because if he had it's like, you aren't doing this for me. You're doing this for you, but you don't know why you're doing it for you. And that's dangerous, because if you're starting to think for yourself, my control is lessened.
And something that I'm really challenged by is, at what point is accountability held? At what age? Is there a specific age? Is it a mentality thing? What is it? Because from what we understand, he's supposed to be Philip. Forget how old the actor actually is, because he does look too old, but he's supposed to be 15, 16, maybe 17, in that age range.
He's meant to be an adolescent, not an adult.
And there's a lot of discussion that is very infantilizing. They see him as a little boy. Oh, I remember him when he was just a baby. I remember he could barely walk and he would stumble over. And when did he change? Oh, it's a day-by-day thing. And before you know it, you don't even recognize that there's a change. I still see him as a child. Philip is someone who has committed mass murder. He's been not just a participant, but an orchestrator of it. He's been the right hand. They even say on the news that this is, in human history, the greatest act of terrorism ever performed. They keep rattling off the death count on the news. Philip is responsible for that. It's not just Marco, because Marco even brings up, like, you helped. You even sacrificed one of our guys to do it. Marco treats him, when it comes to the responsibility of what they've done, as an adult. But with everything else, he treats him like a child. You're my son. I expect better of you. I'm disappointed. But when it actually comes to the morally fucked up thing that's at the center of this character, Marco's the one that treats him like an adult. Everyone else treats him as a kid. And it really makes me struggle of, at what point do you expect accountability for something out of a person? Because, like, he's 15. A part of me is like, well, fuck him. He's a mass murderer. Fuck him. Like, I don't give a fuck that he's just a little boy, boo-hoo. No, he isn't.
No, for me, the mitigating circumstance is that he was groomed for this.
But does that excuse?
No. It's not an excuse, but it's part of the explanation, and it's important context that, like, under different circumstances, he would not have been involved. He would not agree with those decisions, and he would not have made the individual choices that he did outside of that. But I think there's a lot of this kind of discourse around child soldiers, like how culpable are they in their decisions when you know that they are brainwashed, like, and if they are removed from that situation, how can they possibly cope with the things that they did?
It's about point of entry as well for how we meet them and know them. I think back to, again, Babylon 5 is a series that we often refer to. We covered it. One of the main characters, we see their journey into doing mass murder, and then we have to reconcile our feelings about that. While another character, who we look at as virtuous, did it before the show happened. That's Delenn I'm talking about. She's responsible for a war that nearly cost the entirety of the human race, but she's reckoned with that. Well, she's reckoning with that, and we look at her more favorably than Londo, who's someone we're seeing commit it. And I think about that with Naomi, where Naomi is a character who we know for a fact was in Philip's shoes. She at some point followed along Marco's vision, and it cost the lives of countless people, of many people.
And she was young.
And she was young.
She was impressionable. She trusted Marco. Like, they had a romantic relationship, but that still involves closeness and trust, which he violated.
And we, because we've known her longer as this individual after the fact, we can say that redemption is possible, or at least allowable, perhaps, for someone in that position. But with Philip, we have met him after killing millions of people. And so...
After he committed to committing.
Yeah, but I'm still, like, but that's the thing. I'm saying he killed millions of people. You're saying that, and that's like that's a thing where how much of the responsibility are you willing to lay at his feet? I am willing to say he killed millions of people.
Oh, yes.
Without second guessing.
No, I was just more like in the timeline, he was on the path, but their murders hadn't happened when we met him. But his resolve was completely there, because if he hadn't sabotaged the thing on Jupiter, was it Jupiter or Venus? Whatever.
Yes, Venus.
The outpost that would have detected the asteroids. If Philip hadn't done that, the whole plan would have fucking fallen apart.
And our judgment of his
Without
character...
him, Marco would not have succeeded.
And they point that out. And again, this entire incident is our entry point into knowing who this character is, other than he is Naomi's son. We met him at the end of last season, and guess what he did? He killed a character we liked, or he was there to kill a character we liked with Ashford. And he was then following up on this plan that he succeeded at. This is our entry point for the character. We didn't get a whole season of him being another character, and then we saw him fall into this. No, this is our entry point.
That was more Diogo.
You let Marco poison your heart and Philip's, and I will never forgive you for that.
Naomi, you said that you pray for death for her, so
No,
you were horny for her death and demise of storyline. Again, I didn't say it.
Excited me. What was going to happen excited me. That was the best that I could get from this episode. It wasn't that I was excited for it to actually happen because I knew that she was safe. I was just wondering how this was going to play out. Like, I knew that she wasn't going to die because that just doesn't make sense. But her struggling with being halfway between being a prisoner and being free, and her fighting against being surrounded by the mentality of Marco. Because I feel like that's really doing her head in as well.
That Marco isn't acting like the insane monster she believes him to be. Throughout the entire episode, every time she's interacting with him, he's playing up this mild-mannered person. I really like the touch of when she leaves, we stay in that scene with Philip and Marco and the other two, and the guy whose name I forget is just like, do you have to play with her like that? Because he recognizes Marco's playing. He's toying with her. Philip doesn't realize that. You can tell by his goofy face he doesn't realize that, because to him, his dad's a nice guy who has the interests of everyone in his heart, especially the belt, specifically the belt. But I have been harsh, as have you, about Naomi as a character and about how we got here. But I do feel for her. That's the thing. I always want to stress, I do feel for Naomi. It's the fact that the writers know that I feel for the character and they milk it to an extent where it goes over the line.
You know what it did? It did something right, because in this episode, I forgave how she got here.
I haven't.
I just moved. I was like, okay, we're here now. I'm moving on. It's still fucking stupid, and I will still probably complain about it, especially when we do our season recap. But now I'm like, we're here now.
There was some good material for the character. I still wish that 90% of it wasn't just her blubbing in the corner. And I know why she's blubbing. And I'm not saying we can't have emotions on the screen. I'm just saying I like the bits where it wasn't just that more than the bits where it was just that. And for the majority of the time, it was her crying and being upset about things. And again, understand it. I can track it. But I was much more invested in the scenes of her talking about Marco being a piece of shit. Why are you up in my face? Why did you poison my son too? I really like that conversation where she talks about how Marco's this poison and how she thought that he wouldn't be like so overwhelming that it would corrupt the way it has, but she's disappointed too that it has. She thought that this man would be the other father figure that would guide Philip in the right direction, but no, I guess you lost your way too, and you don't even realize it, because that's the thing. These people don't truly realize, like Naomi has, how far gone their morality is when they are with Marco.
Yeah.
That Marco's not just a manipulator and an abuser to just the person he's in a relationship or his son, but it's to everyone. Everyone around him. Now, is there much else you want to say about Naomi? Because she does a lot in this episode. Like, she tries to outright kill Marco, knowing that it would kill her too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then we should acknowledge that she gets the message to Holden to save his life, but also lets him know where she is.
Well, she says, I've been taken by Marco. She doesn't say where she is.
No.
She just says what's happened to her.
She doesn't know where she is anymore.
I think she knows the ship name because he's said it and she can read. So she could have said the ship name, but she does the extra mile. She tries to kill Marco with a knife. Good on her. She gets stopped. No one knows that she was trying to do that, by the way. That just is one of those things
Except
where...
Philip.
Did he know that she was trying... No, I don't think he did know that.
He did.
I think he just thought, no, you're not allowed in this spot. Dad said no, because...
No, but he says that, I saved your life.
Yeah, I assumed because she was told not to go there and she was just going to go there anyway. I don't know. I read it that Philip didn't recognize that at all because she was still allowed to have the knife.
True.
They're not impressed with her by the end of the episode. That's the most important thing. They're all upset with Naomi. They all look at her like she's filth because she messaged the inner. She messaged her boyfriend. Ugh.
Which they were making fun of her for earlier in the episode, right?
Who's she loyal to? Well, we know now. Well, we knew. Now they know too. Was it dumb of them to just let her roam the ship?
Oh, yeah. It was arrogance on Marco's part.
He was doing a dick measuring competition. See, Naomi, I'm not a bad person. I let you have free roam to a point, and you can't escape. Oh, you can leave. Okay, I'll go on my ship. That's not your ship anymore. You gave it to Philip. Philip, do you want her to leave?
Are you going to give it back to her? No.
Nope. Okay. Well, you're stuck here then, aren't you?
I think, for me, the most dull cog-turning part of this was Holden, this episode, though, because it was that he doesn't get to do anything. They're kind of putting together a crew, which I don't give a shit about because I know that it's not permanent. And then Naomi stops him from launching. Is there anything else?
The fact that he didn't think it was sabotage to begin with, considering that the architect of this whole entire thing was the head engineer that was repairing the Rocinante, is astounding to begin with, by the way.
He's so dumb.
Not one person thought that. That's the thing that gets me. I'm not even against the whole they've sabotaged the ship because that makes sense. What didn't make sense to me was at no point did we see any character even assume that was a possibility. Except for Naomi, who's not fucking there. Who's not there herself. We even get a scene where Bull is his name. He justifies why he's going to be the new Alex, where he can drive the ship. He's like, hey, I may not be that type of ship driver, but I can drive this real easy. Okay, cool. Holden's fine. I'm disappointed with Holden because we went through an amazing journey of not liking him to really loving him. Now he's just there too. It feels like this season is listening to our season 1 complaint of why have him as the main character at all. So they've taken that to heart and said, okay, he's not. He's just here too. We'll cut to him and he'll stand there and say things and then react appropriately. He feels very much a character out of obligation rather than necessity. It doesn't feel like the show cares too much about Holden, which, how does it feel to be upset by that now?
Weird. It feels weird. And I'm like, we came so far and now we're going back? I don't want to go back.
He's too noble to even participate in dodgy tactics to get information out of their, captive. That's already happened and he seems disappointed by that. Like, that's an angle you could take the character, but obviously they're not doing that. So instead, you just get exchange of snarky lines at one another and lines from her that are just thematic of Fred Johnson was just a tourist.
Fred Johnson was a friend to all builders.
He was a tourist. Go home in your Lada and stay there. If you don't, the bell will remind you that you don't belong here. Again and again and again.
Alex and Bobby came in for like a day shoot.
It was from the previous episode. They still had them sitting in those chairs, so they said, let's film some more scenes.
We've got this set up, so we'll just do this now.
Could all of their scenes from these last 2 episodes have been in one episode?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Fraggin' See, we're bringing the other sci-fi stuff in.
Woohoo!
Man. These...
We still appreciate that the Expanse says fuck.
Yes, they said it a few times in this.
We're already not talking about them.
Do they care?
Who is they?
The show, the writers.
Do the
they
show care? I think the show is just like, well, we need something for them to do. And I feel dumb for saying that I liked them together because now it's just like shoving it in my face. Like, you said you liked it. It's just like, well, I liked it and it had a purpose. Not to say that this doesn't have a purpose because it's clearly just setting up, but it doesn't tell us anything about the people, and it is so minuscule
plot-wise. Okay, so Marco is getting Martian ships.
We knew that already.
If we didn't know, we could gather it.
We didn't need scenes of this.
What, you didn't say... Wait, excuse me. Are you saying that the revelation that Marco is getting Martian warships wasn't worth 3 episodes worth of exploration? Because that's how many it's taken to get to the revelation of it.
You know
not
what,
even anything more,
you know
just
what makes
the revelation
it worse?
of it.
You know what not worse. Didn't mean to say that. You know what makes it even worth it? Getting to see those actors do the juice acting.
Juice it up. Oh, I've given up on Bobby. I'm sorry. I've tried seasons on end. I've tried to be like, oh, you know what? Nope. Because I'm really aware that we're nearing the end of the show and that I've spent more time not giving a fuck about Bobby than I will giving a fuck about Bobby. And that's just such a sadness.
The point of no return.
I'm at the point of no return. Like, the fact that Monica has had less stuff to do, and I love her because she's really well defined, okay, so Alex and Bobby are sitting there telling us stuff, and then at the end, we have a high-speed pursuit, and they eject their core, and we're going to be left on a cliffhanger of, oh no, what's going to happen to Alex and Bobby now that they're drifting in space? I'm sure it'll be fine. Like, that's how I feel. It's Bobby. It'll work out in the end. Somehow, through muscle. You know what it is? You know Superman.
She's got a suit.
Yeah, she's got the suit. You know Superman and how Superman can be a very boring character sometimes because it'll work out in the end because he's just stronger than everyone.
Yeah,
that's
need
how I
the
feel.
kryptonite.
That's how I feel about Bobby as a character. It's like, it'll work out in the end because she'll just punch her way out of it. Okay. Not as interesting to me. Not as interesting. And yet, couldn't you say the same thing about Amos? Isn't he a guy that things will most likely work out in the end because he can punch and shoot his way out of the problem? And I think the difference is he also has characters around him that challenge him way more. Way more on an emotional level. While Bobby, every character she's with doesn't really get the chance to do that. It's more the writers throw that at her like, see, she's become disillusioned.
Her growth is secular.
So Marco's getting the warships from Mars, okay. Is this something
He's
that
building a navy.
he's free Navy? Are we shocked?
No.
Was it worth 3 episodes of drawing it out?
No.
Not at all. Not at all. Okay, great. And now what's going to happen to them? We'll see. We'll have to wait and see. Now, Amos, he is a character that you very much enjoy. I enjoy him as well. But again, why can't criticisms like what we've just said about Bobby be leveled at him? I think it's because he's got a much more stuff going on an emotional level and a psychological level.
There has been development in his depth, his childhood, his trauma, as well as what we've seen him go through has changed him, not like completely, but he's changed. Whereas both of us feel like Bobby just keeps on going through the same arc and hasn't really changed a lot. Like, she's still just a badass Martian who's trying to do the right thing.
In a world that doesn't care.
Yeah, and in a system that's working against her. But Amos is still trying to do the best and the right thing that he can manage and protect the people that he cares about. And sometimes that involves a galactic level thing, and sometimes that involves throwing a dude down an elevator shaft.
This is what one could say is a very superficial reason, but I think it's actually a very, very pivotal thing. Something that I really like about Amos is he is consistently funny. He is consistently funny, whether he is actually trying to be funny or his general demeanor and attitude is weirdly funny. That is endearing. That's likable. I can gravitate towards that. I am guaranteed to have an emotional reaction to Amos in every episode. Bobby has been funny intermittently, but they aren't committed to making her, and that's fine. Not every character needs to be funny. But it is something that helps a lot, that it does help. I don't need everyone to be funny. Like, look, Christian can be funny. I actually like her a lot more when she's not being funny. I like her when she's being a lot more of a, like, reflective character. But it helps. It sure helps. And in this plot with Amos stuck underground trying to get his way to the top and having to manage all of these different people, what really made it more than just stock standard going from point A to point B, because let's be real honest here, his story is trite, it's rote, you knew where everything was going to go, or at least I did.
Oh, yeah. Like, it's A, B, C, D. Done.
But it went down well and smoothly because Amos is a charming fellow.
Oh,
he's a funny guy. His quirky reaction to things and his mentality to stuff is so palpable that it can make me much more forgiving of what is very obvious stories.
And the obvious stuff around him. But also, like, it made me more forgiving of the trite stuff that was also around that, like, around Amos within that plot of, the guard has an ex-husband and a kid.
It relates to what Amos just went through of, like, he's all about kids, got to search for your kids, that's fine, do what you got to do, look after yourself, but also, don't worry about us.
It's a very logical and universally kind of acceptable reason for her to fuck off.
They may as well have said that one of the guards was on their last day before retirement. It's obvious stuff. It's tropey, cliched stuff. The big muscly guy who's obviously untrustworthy is untrustworthy, but they have to work with him and pretend that he's not being untrustworthy to get through it. And then at the end, they have to fight him. And it works out. Clarissa is out of her element. She's weakened. She can't help. But at the end, she's going to try and help, but she's still unsuccessful. All of that stuff is fine.
And it was all set up from the beginning.
This is a big Amos episode because we just spend a lot of time with him, but I don't know, like, outside of just enjoying his character, I really didn't care much for this story because
No.
it was just
Again, it's
rudimentary.
the cogs turning. Amos needed to get from underground to above ground. They succeeded in doing that job.
And
But I
again-
was entertained while those things that had to happen were happening. And that is largely because I like the character.
and the actor. I don't always need stories to be so overwhelming with plot beats or even thematic stuff or character stuff. I can be satiated with just having a good time. And that's what Amos's story was for me. It's just a good time. It's nothing deep, nothing worth discussing in great depth. It gave us the ability to have Amos and Clarissa together now in a world that is falling apart. The most impactful thing to me in this story was Amos lamenting the fact that he spent one day too long on this mud ball. And now he has to fucking deal with this shit, which is not what he wanted. He's never wanted to come back here.
Am I going to have to deal with fucking Earth?
I think another 5 episodes. He probably won't reconnect with the Rocinante crew until the last episode.
The wind.
I never thought I'd feel it again. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
What do we do now?
Yeah.
I would give this episode, it's tough because our rating system is real binary, just like how Marco would want it to be. Real black and white. Is it Yum being bad or Yum Yum being good? And what am I measuring off of? Of just general quality, or am I measuring on the bell curve of the series or the season? I think I have to land on a Yum Yum.
Yum yum. I'm going to end up at a yum yum too. Yum yum.
You have the title of the next episode. I have not seen it. You're about to read it, and we're going to make our predictions on what will be happening next. What could follow on from Down and Out?
Tribes.
Tribes?
Tribes.
Tribes. Okay.
We're back to the single word titles.
Tribes. What do you think will be happening in Tribes?
I think we're going to get more of Holden on the Rossi, because the description of this episode made it out like that was going to be a thing, and it wasn't in this episode, so I think it's going to be next one.
And what do you think that actually looks like? So him on the hunt, what does that actually entail?
Oh, he's going to be trying to fix the Rossi, maybe? I feel like that's going to be a non-problem, though. I feel like they're just going to get rid of the program, and it's like, oh, okay. Now we can go after them, but they don't know where to start, maybe.
Just to follow on that, I actually think we're going to return to May from Star Trek Discovery, because she had a moment where she was going to tell them not to go, but then she gave in and was like, no, I'll talk to you when you come back, knowing that they would die. I think they're going to return to her and get her to help them or do something for them in return for having almost killed them. I think they're going to pressure her. But when it comes to Holden actually on the trail, where does he begin? Because he has the message, but they don't know where it's from and they can't track it. So how does he find out where things are? Do you think he's going to reconnect with Alex and Bobby? But he doesn't know where they are either, because they've been lost in space. He can't reconnect with Amos because Amos is MIA as far as he knows. So where does he go from here?
We see him frantically messaging Naomi, being like, nobody's answering my calls.
Oh, he did mention that he can't reach his parents and that Montana was fucked up from what went wrong. So he is worried that his family is dead. So we did get that touched upon. I was wondering about them previously. What else do you think is happening in Tribe? So you feel like we're going to pick up with Holden and he's going to kind of gallivant off?
Useless scene with Alex and Bobby being lost in space.
I feel like that has to be the main plot point with how this one ended. Like them scraping by and maybe getting swooped up by some Martians and having to answer for things.
Or Marco.
Oh, if only they got... if only we could have a scene of Bobby talking to Mark. Oh, no, I don't know where the geography of everything is, but what about Drummer? Maybe she finds them.
Maybe.
Hello, it's me, Drummer. We have all interacted several times over, haven't we? And then Bobby's like, I don't really get to be in the show in that way, so no. I don't think they've ever interacted, have they? Bobby and Drummer? I don't think they've had scenes together. I don't think so.
Yeah, that feels right.
That feels right. Wait, season 3? At the end of season 3, there was a lot of running around. I still don't think Bobby got to interact with Drummer in those. Maybe. But I think Tribes is going to be dealing with Bobby and Alex having to survive what they've just gone through. They get to know each other, send off the message to Christian. I think Christian is going to have some more wheeling and dealing and having to struggle with the new power vacuum that's been caused by this
Tribes
attack. Tribes forming, and I think we're just going to spend way more time with Marco and seeing the aftermath of what Naomi did. That Marco is going to have to, stop playing around now and actually have to act, because we
Stop playing with Naomi?
Yes, because we have seen such with Drummer and Ashford, that game that is played of, well, I have to show the rest of the Belters that I'm not messing around. Like, I will space this person, or I will punish them, I will do that.
I think
and
we're going to get the convergence of all of the Belter factions.
The Belter factions, yes. And do you think he'll have the blue goo by then? Because that's still on its way. I don't think he's gotten it. He's just been threatening.
Be part of him holding court.
Oh, of course. So, Tribes. We will see if any of that comes to pass. Anything else, prediction-wise, did Down and Out make you have predictions about the future of the series?
Nothing new. Because it's just moving everything forward a bit.
Amos and Clarissa, they're paired together. She will have her abilities to use her mods soon. So I have nothing more about them other that I haven't said already. I think they're going to go on a wonderful little journey and arc where they become best friends, perhaps a romance, but I think we're going to get a cool action scene of him being Amos, fucking people up, and her using her mod, fucking people up. And we're going to just have a fun bloodbath of that, because we've actually been restrained of Amos going like Hulk mode on people in a little bit. We had that in the first episode, and it was cut weirdly, where it was almost
the shower scene.
The shower scene was almost like dissatisfying in a good way. We talked about that. I feel like we're going to have these two kind of Hulk out and maybe have a conversation about like violence and what does that mean and who are we underneath it all. That's it. That's all I have in terms of predictions of the series as a whole. So thank you all so much for listening. Thank you all for tuning in. We hope you've had a good time as we went down and out. Rachel, where can people find the podcast on the internet? Where can we be located?
Various social medias under yumyumpod or yumyumpodcast, conveniently linked in the description.
You can also rate and review the podcast on any of the sites that allow you to do so. Leave a comment. You can email us over at yumyumpod@gmail.com to let us know your thoughts, opinions, and any other things that you like. Just make sure you don't spoil stuff for us, because again, we are going through this as first-timers, and where's the fun in spoiling stuff? There's no fun there to be had. I wag my finger at you. Yes, I do. But make sure to share the podcast around. Perhaps you know somebody who's going through a watch of The Expanse and they may enjoy a podcast companion to their experience, whether there's someone that has done a watch through before or they're going through it for the first time. We may be some delightful entertainment to journey them along the experience that is The Expanse. We also have our Patreon, in which we release content early. We release these episodes on there first, as well as a whole slew of bonus content that doesn't make it to the main feed. So if you have the means to do so, support the podcast and you get to get episodes early, as well as be a part of our community Discord, in which we chat about things, we argue about things, we share stuff around. It's an overall pleasant time had. Rachel, that's it. We are done. We are out of here. But now that we're having a meeting of all the Belters next episode, that's what we believe. Do you think this will be the chance to see the Gaunt Belter again? Because he's the spokesperson.
There's always a chance.
There's always a chance. Honestly, though, no jokes aside, do you think we'll see any familiar faces again at the meeting, whether it is Anderson Dawes or the Gaunt Belter or any of those people? Do you think we'll see any familiar faces that we haven't seen in a little while?
I do, but I don't know who. I hope.
Let's hope it's the Gaunt Belter.
See you then. Well, voila.